You looked up, and it was December again. You're not even sure how it happened. The year had a January. You remember making plans, buying a calendar, telling yourself this would be the year. But the months between then and now feel thin, like pages torn quietly out of a book you barely got to read. It feels faster every single year, and you assume it's just you getting busier, getting tired, getting old. But the real answer is far stranger, because time is not actually speeding up. The clock on your wall ticks at the exact same rate it did when you were 7 years old. A year is still 365 sunrises. The Earth has not changed its orbit. Nothing out there is moving any quicker than it did before. What changed is the machine that measures it, the one sitting behind your eyes. Your brain is not a clock. It never was. It is a storyteller, and it judges the length of any stretch of time by how much story it has left to tell about it. So the real question isn't why time is moving faster. The real question is darker and more personal than that. Why does your brain keep handing you a shorter story every year you stay alive? Go back to the year 1877. A French philosopher named Paul Janet was sitting with this exact feeling, the one you have right now, and he proposed something simple and a little brutal. Every stretch of time, he said, is measured against the entire length of the life you have already lived. Sit with what that means. When you are 2 years old, a single year is half of everything you have ever experienced. It is an ocean. It is endless. When you are 50, that very same year is 1/50th of your life. A single drop in a very full glass. The year did not shrink. Your reference frame grew around it. And this is called the proportional theory, and it quietly explains why one childhood summer felt like it lasted a geological age, while an entire year in your 30s can evaporate before you've noticed it began. To a 10-year-old, 12 months is a tenth of everything. To a 40-year-old, it's barely 2%. The same months, the same planet, wildly different weight. But Janet was only half right, because if time were purely a fraction, it would feel smooth, a gentle and predictable slide downward. And that isn't how it feels, is it? Some years still feel long. Some single weeks seem to crawl on forever, while whole seasons slip past unseen. The math alone cannot explain that. 13 years later, the great psychologist William James reached into the same mystery in his masterwork, The Principles of Psychology. He noticed the thing the equation had missed. He wrote that as you grow older, the years grow hollow and collapse, and he believed he knew exactly why. Childhood and youth, James said, are made almost entirely of firsts. The first time you saw the ocean, the first time the training wheels came off, the first kiss, the first real loss, the first time a song made the hair on your arms stand straight up for no reason you could explain. Every single one of those firsts is a marker, a bright flag planted in the soft, wet ground of a young memory. And here is the secret hiding underneath your whole life. Your brain does not measure the past with a clock at all. It measures the past by counting the markers it left behind. A year crowded with new experiences leaves behind dozens of vivid, detailed memories. So when you turn to look back at it, it feels enormous, simply because there is so much there to see. A year of pure routine, the same desk and the same drive and the same dinner on repeat, leaves almost nothing behind at all. So when you finally turn to look at that year, there is nothing there. It vanishes. Not because it was short, because it was empty. A writer named Claudia Hammond gave this strange effect a perfect name. She called it the holiday paradox. Think back to your last real vacation, a week somewhere you had never been. While you were living it, the days felt rich and slow and impossibly full. New streets under your feet, new food, new faces in every direction. But the strange part arrives afterward. Once you are home, that single week feels in your memory like it lasted a month. Meanwhile, the ordinary week that came after it, the one made of work and sleep and repeat, felt slow while you dragged through it, but then dissolved into one flat gray smudge the moment it was over. That is the paradox in full. Novelty makes time feel slow while you live it, and long when you remember it. Routine does the cruel opposite. It drains away quickly in memory, because your brain found nothing inside it worth keeping. Your entire childhood was one long holiday in a country you had never once visited. Everything was new, so everything got saved. And now you have seen most of it before, so your brain, ever efficient, quietly stops taking notes. The neuroscientist David Eagleman wanted to find out how deep this goes, so he did something that sounds almost insane. He took volunteers to the top of a tall tower in Dallas, strapped a special clock to each of their wrists, and dropped them. A genuine free fall, 15 stories, straight down into a net, the kind of fall where every cell in your body is utterly convinced it is about to die. He wanted to answer one question. When people swear that time slowed down during a terrifying moment, is time really slowing inside their minds, or is something else entirely going on? The clock strapped to their wrist flashed numbers too fast to read at a normal speed. The logic was simple. If time truly stretched for them during the fall, they would be able to read those numbers as they dropped. Not one of them could. Time had not slowed down even slightly, and yet afterward, every single volunteer remembered the fall as lasting far longer than it actually had. Eagleman's conclusion was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Fear does not slow down time. Fear makes your brain record the world in extraordinary detail. And later, when you replay a densely recorded memory, your brain mistakes all of that detail for length. The entire trick of your life is hidden inside that 5-second fall. Time, as you remember it, is nothing more than memory density. The more your brain writes down, the longer a moment seems to have lasted. The less it bothers to write, the more your life quietly disappears beneath you. So what do you think happens when you grow into an adult who has, more or less, seen it all before? Your brain, efficient to the very end, simply stops writing things down. There may be an even more physical reason buried beneath all of this. In 2019, an engineer at Duke University named Adrian Bejan offered a sharp new angle on the whole puzzle. He argued that as your body ages, the actual speed at which your brain processes incoming images begins to slow down. When you were young, your eyes flickered and darted constantly, gathering a flood of fresh mental snapshots every second. Your brain processed the world at a furious internal frame rate. More frames meant more perceived time packed inside every passing second. As you age, those same signals must travel along older, longer, more tangled neural pathways. The frame rate quietly drops. You take in fewer mental images for every second of real time that passes. And if your brain is capturing fewer frames, the outside world appears to move faster, the same way film shot at a low frame rate seems to skip and rush ahead. It is a contested idea, and not everyone in the field agrees with it, but it points straight at the same haunting truth from a brand new direction. The speed of time is not out there in the world. It is set entirely by the machine inside your skull. So now turn and look at your own life. Really look at it. How many days in this past month were truly different from the one before them? How many of your meals can you actually remember eating? How many drives? How many conversations? How many entire afternoons left behind even a single flag in the ground? This is the real reason your 20s felt so vast and your 40s feel like someone is holding down the fast forward button. It was never about age, it is about repetition. You slowly built yourself a comfortable life, and comfort, when you look closely at it, is just a softer word for the very same thing happening over and over again. Your brain treats routine exactly like a delete key. Anything it has seen before, it no longer bothers to save. And a life that your brain has stopped saving is, by its very definition, a life that feels like it is slipping straight through your fingers. But here is the part that should sit you upright. The reverse of all this is just as true. If novelty is the thing that makes time feel long, then you have been holding the lever this entire time. You always were. You cannot add a single year to your life by stretching out the clock. No one can. But you can pour life back into the years you already have, simply by handing your brain something new and worth writing down. A different route taken home, a skill you are genuinely bad at, a real conversation with a complete stranger, a trip to somewhere your feet have never once touched, a single deliberate break in the pattern you have been living inside. None of it stops the calendar from turning, but all of it forces your brain to pick the pen back up and start taking notes again. And a brain that is taking notes is a brain that is quietly making your time feel full once more. The people who sigh that their whole life simply flew past them are so often the ones who slowly stopped collecting firsts, and the people who feel they have lived something long and rich and full are usually the ones who never stopped going out to find them. So the speed of your time was never really a question of how old you are, it was always a question of how awake you are willing to be. One day you will look up, and it will be December again, but it does not have to feel thin. It does not have to be a book you barely got to read. You are the one who gets to decide how much story this year leaves behind, because you have been holding the pen the entire time. Time isn't speeding up, you are simply deciding, one ordinary day at a time, how much of it is worth remembering.